Twins, they finally snapped that losing streak. They beat the Marlins. Final score 8-3, breaking it all down next on the Locked On Twins postcast.
You are Locked On Twins postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another Minnesota Twins postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man. He's back. CJ Baumgartner. He's on X. Give him a follow at Baum CJ30, our Twins expert over at Zone Coverage MN. And CJ, before we jump into all the action from tonight's game, quick reminder: tonight's episode brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for $50 instantly with any $5 wager. Okay, game 2 versus Miami. Do or die time, man. Hanging by a thread. Woods Richardson on the mound. You're thinking, okay, maybe he can turn the tide for you. Not the case. 1 inning, 6 hits, 3 earned runs. He gets yanked. And usually with this team, a 3-run deficit, that's like climbing Mount Everest pretty much. Lights out, game over, put the kids to bed. But not so fast, my friends. Not tonight. Buxton hit what was that, 18th homer of the year. Byron Buxton, moonshot, by the way, 450-footer into the upper deck. That ties it up. Then this 5-run explosion in the 7th inning, thanks to like this gutsy Christian Vasquez bunt on a 3-2 full count. That was fun to see. Marlins make a throwing error. The floodgates are open. Correa doubles next at bat. Santana hits a 3 RBI double. And finally, Twins win. 3-game losing streak is snapped. And more importantly, maybe, CJ, a little life, a little juice back into this lineup. So just start with your biggest takeaways, kind of your 8 topics from tonight's victory.
They won. I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Like, that's all they needed to do. They needed to win and keep themselves alive, and they did that. Now, as we'll probably get into later, the Tigers and the Royals did win, so you kept pace, but at this rate, you need to win pretty much every game for the rest of the season if you want a realistic chance at making a postseason. And to do that, you had to. Sorry, Mike cut out there for a second.
Hey, it's a live show, baby. Hey, Twins don't win often, okay? We don't even know how to handle ourselves.
And, just.
Are you getting the vibe here, CJ, that Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa are just trying to like single-handedly drag this team to the playoffs right now? They've been so good since they've both been back and both been healthy, as they should be, right? They're 2 of the best players on the roster, obviously, but it's such a night and day kind of vibe with this whole lineup when those 2 are in the mix doing the things that they're supposed to do. In his last 9 games, Carlos Correa, he's hitting .313, 6 ribbies, .436 on base percentage. I mean, that's just wild. That's the Carlos Correa we've been missing this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it's September Correa, right? It's the guy that you've been looking for. Just for him to win, to be a part of this team, to get those hits that he needs to, is just huge. And the Twins lineup hasn't always bailed him out, but the fact that he's there, he's getting those hits. Same with Buxton. It is a night and day difference when those 2 are in the lineup.
Yeah, 100%. And, the other thing, too, is this stat feels insane. That Buxton homer, it snapped a 63-inning streak of no Minnesota Twins home runs. 63 innings, no home runs. Last home run was the 8th inning of last Tuesday's game. That in itself is absolutely wild, too. That kind of speaks volumes. If you're to tell somebody, hey, I just woke up, I've been out of town, what's going on with the Twins? That would be the stat to kind of encapsulate the lack of offense that this team has had the last week.
Yeah. I mean, just again, this offense has been really bad. It's been really, really bad. So for them just to have a performance like this tonight, for those guys to step up, I mean, just for everything involved, it's just really, really important for this team.
Yeah, 100%. So answer me this, I guess. How much does a win like this really move the needle, I guess? Because on one hand, and you and I were kind of talking about it before we came on, you'll take these wins any way you can get them. Let's be real. But on the other hand, you got gift wrapped, a handful of runs. Miami had 4 errors on the night. A Marlins roster really that's got a bunch of no-name kind of call-ups this late in the season on it right now too. So what do we make of this win, I guess? How much does it really move the needle for you?
Yeah, I mean, the Marlins are a young team. I think they only have one player who's 30 or older. So this is a team that got rid of anybody that was a veteran. They're trying to lose. They're whatever. And they lost their 100th game tonight. I think that gets lost in the fact. So yeah, they're not the 27 Yankees or anything. And it's frustrating because you made them look like the 27 Yankees last night. So for them to come out and to get that bounce back win, if you can win 2 out of 3, I think coming into the series, if you said, hey, they'll take 2 out of 3, I think you take that, especially the way that they're playing. But the fact that it happened on that first game when it felt like everything was still crumbling, and the way they did it with leaving all those runners in scoring position, to swivel back tonight and to have that performance is huge. And hopefully you can pick that up, salvage the series, win 2 out of 3. But yeah, I mean, it's tough because you've given yourself no margin for error. When you lost that first game of the series, you had to win today, you have to win tomorrow, and now you have to win 2 out of 3 against Baltimore to have any chance of reaching the postseason. And that might not even be enough. You know, ideally, as we've talked about all season long, getting a sweep is never guaranteed. And no matter what the record is of any team on either side coming in, you can't predict that. But a sweep would have been so huge for this team and so advantageous. And last night, they just couldn't take advantage. So tonight is important. They needed to win tonight. But yeah, I mean, it's not like they've gained a game on anybody. They've just kept pace. And it's not, as terms of a needle mover in the moment right now, no, it doesn't really feel like a ton.
Yeah, and I guess let's talk about that just a little bit bigger picture now, because you're right. Detroit won tonight. Kansas City won tonight. Twins win, but obviously, like you said, they don't gain any ground. Still 2 games back, but you do have the tiebreaker on both of them. And it's not like you need to leapfrog both of these teams. You only got to catch up to one of these guys. Detroit gets the White Sox next, so that's obviously not great. Kansas City's got 1 more with Washington, and then 3 with Atlanta. So is this still a chip chair and a chance scenario we're in here, or does this really feel like we're climbing Mount Everest right now? Like, where are your optimism levels at right now after this win?
You know, yesterday I was talking with somebody about this, and I said, I really think that there's a golden opportunity for the Twins to make the postseason. I still think it's there. I still believe on a gut level they were going to get in. And then they lost yesterday, and I was just like, nope, it's done. Like, that's toast. And that's kind of where I'm still sitting now, is that I don't think they get into the playoffs just on a gut level where we're sitting right now. And that's just because, like you said, Detroit has 3 with the White Sox, and they are going to look to end the season any way possible. They are like, that's just 3 wins for Detroit right there lined up for them. So really you're catching Kansas City in this whole mess. And Kansas City has a few with the Braves, and the Braves are chasing a final playoff spot and hopefully still will be by the weekend series, but they have a little bit of a deal with the hurricane down in that area. So it's going to make a scheduling snafu. So again, you could have a Braves team that's just in a weird spot trying to play against the Royals, and Kansas City taking advantage. So that is also on the table. It's just a tough situation, and Baltimore likely won't be playing for anything. And that's who the Twins play over the weekend. Their playoff spot will be locked up. They'll be looking to rest starters and to get their rotation lined up for the wild card series. It's not to say that there's not a chance, but just based on who the Twins are playing, who the Tigers are playing, and who the Royals are playing, it just, again, the Royals are going to need to continue a collapse that they've been on. They just snapped a big losing streak tonight or the night before. So, the Royals, I think, are your best chance. The Tigers, it feels like, just have it set up to glide into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you. On paper, forget about Tigers. Don't even mention their name at this point. It's got to be the Royals, if anything. And you're talking about Baltimore. You're right. I got the standings pulled up. So after tonight's win over the Yankees, there's still 4 back from the Yankees. And then there's still 3 games up on Detroit and Kansas City. So you're right. It does feel like they'll probably be resting some starters, which huge advantage for Minnesota. But again, still got to go out and take care of business. Woods Ritchie on the mound tonight. 1 inning, 6 hits, 3 earned, 2 Ks, 1 walk, only 36 pitches. Here's an Aaron Gleeman stat. His first 22 starts of the year, 3.69 ERA. His last 6 starts, 6.75 ERA. So almost double the ERA. Strikeouts are down, walks are up. What'd you see tonight, I guess, but, more big picture, how much of these late season struggles is just a young 23-year-old kid just running out of gas, I guess, this late in the season?
Yeah, I mean, that's really it for Woods Richardson. It's the fact that he pretty much has ran out of gas, and that's not atypical. Remember, Bailey Ober got shut down in 2021 in his rookie year because they're like, all right, you've hit an innings limit, you're done, you've never pitched this much before. We're going to value your long-term health. We're going to rest you. And he didn't pitch much in 2022, but in 23, he even got fatigued then. So it takes a while to build your arm up. And look at Bailey Ober now. He's a guy that the Twins, one of their most trusted pitchers. So it's not a detriment for Simeon Woods Richardson that he's starting to break down at this point in the season. When you look at his fastball today, his average velocity on the fastball was 90 miles an hour, and it's just not been where his season average has been. It's been a little bit lower. And again, it's just a guy who's running out of gas. There's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, he's a guy that's, definitely going to benefit if the Twins don't make the playoffs from some rest. But I think overall, the entire body of work in his season still leaves you very optimistic for what he can give you in the years to come.
What do the Twins still do well right now? I asked Sweet Lou this last night, but I want your take. Like, what can you look in the camera with a straight face and say with confidence, this Twins team still does really well right now, like better than most? What are they still good at right now anymore, I guess?
I mean, they show up to work, I guess. Like that's
lunch pail, clocking in, blue collar.
Right. They're doing their job. It's the quiet quitting or something like that. I don't know, but
not a lot though, is your point. Not a lot, right?
Not a lot. And I'll give them this, that they've done a good job, generally speaking, of their strikeouts. And that they have not struck out as much as they have last year. Now that's, in and of itself, that sounds like a good thing. They've had a lot of soft contact. And in fact, since August 18th, when this collapse has really started, they're like bottom 5 in terms of the amount of soft contact, which means I should say like 5 worst teams in baseball in terms of just the amount of soft contact. So it's a little bit of like it's like a Complisalt kind of thing, like that they do that, but they have limited the strikeouts. They don't whiff as much as they did a year ago. And in and of itself, that is something that you can build on a team that's putting the ball in play more. The one thing is you just have to get that average exit velocity up. And that's something they've hung kind of around league average during this stretch. They've dipped below kind of into that bottom third of baseball. Yeah. But overall, I think just the fact of them putting the ball in play, if you're somebody who loves that brand of baseball, that has been something that they have done, is put the ball in play. The critique of that is just they got to hit the ball a little harder because a weak ground ball to shortstop doesn't really do you much.
Rocco report time, game 2 versus Miami. What'd you see tonight? The Rocco report, it says what?
Well, Rocco Baldelli has gotten criticized, and rightfully, for the fact that he, are you pitching this like a playoff game? Or are you pitching this like a regular season? Just some of these moves, like the doubleheader on Sunday, just some of the pitching moves, Kohler, Venkov, has gotten a lot of criticism, and that's warranted. And today it looked like Rocco pivoted. Simeon Woods Richardson did not have a good first inning. And if this start was even, I think 2 weeks ago, I think Rocco brings him out for another couple innings to try and salvage it, to give him that opportunity. As we've talked about before, he's been struggling. This is a must-win game. You're down 3. You have a bullpen, like you have Varland, you have Alcala, who just got called up. You have Topa, who just got called. Like, it's time to burn those guys. It's time to use it. So I appreciate that Rocco knew into like, all right, this isn't working with Woods Richardson tonight. We got to dump out. We have to win this game. And Louis Varland came in, albeit a little shaky. Varland and Alcala came in and did throw zeros and kept the Twins in the ball game, and they didn't give up another run throughout the rest of the game. So the much maligned bullpen did its job today. And again, Rocco's deserved the criticism he's gotten in the last few weeks, but tonight he did a good job, I think, dumping out from Simeon Woods Richardson when it just wasn't working.
Yeah, well said. No room for error tonight. Absolute do or die situation. Can't get too cute. No long leash. Not in this scenario that they put themselves in, and rightfully so. Plenty more deep dive from this one. Plus, got that nerdy stat of the day. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships. Also what keeps your ride or die alive in eBay Motors. They got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. They got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, they got you covered. 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back with all the parts you need at the prices you want. Easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Just think back to the beginning of the season. When they cut that 30 mil off the payroll to start the year, obviously you knew there would be a big trickle effect, a big snowball effect, but did you still feel like going into game one, when they started the season, they had enough horses and enough manpower to go get the job done? And maybe without all the injuries, this whole thing would look a lot different. Or were you always in the camp that said, nah, this probably is at a certain point, whether they start hot or not, this probably ain't going to work for 162 games because cutting 30 million is too much and unrealistic to put out a quality ball club? Where were you? Which side of the fence?
Well, I think if somebody does want to go back, I mean, we did opening day and we talked about the stuff, and I was very optimistic in this Twins team. And I thought even with the cut payroll, their core guys were all cheap, like Royce Lewis, Matt Wallner, Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton are already locked up. They weren't going anywhere. And just with the pieces they had around, the core talent was going to be so much that it wasn't going to matter. Now, were they going to be, like a 95 win juggernaut? I didn't really predict that, but I also didn't predict the Central would be as good as it was this year. So, I mean, overall, I was somebody who thought that the Twins were still going to be able to compete. Injuries did take their toll, and that has mattered. Don't get me wrong, but the lineup over the last month has been relatively healthy. I know Buxton and Correa just got back, but they've even had good offensive contributions since they've returned. The lineup has still struggled. So I think it's just, it's a little tricky because injuries do make you worse and do make you lean on some things and make everybody have to play a little bit better and whatnot. I was willing a couple weeks ago to give it all to injuries, but just of how hard this is collapsing, it's got to just be a little bit more than that. I don't think you can just go, like you did in 2022, where you're playing Jake Cave and Celestino and some of these guys in the outfield because you just don't have a choice, and Mark Contreras and whatever. But I think this year you were a little more relatively healthy. There's a couple outs you can give them with the payroll and with whatever, but it's still disappointing. And I still think that I don't know what, holding accountable looks like, but in the right way. But I mean, there's got to just be some kind of internal look at what the heck's going on for how hard this collapsed in the last month and a half.
Yeah. And also, to your point, I don't think it can be understated enough how much of the conversation, when we had that conversation at the beginning of the year, going into game one, revolved around, but this division should be really bad. It should be the worst division in baseball. So it kind of put everything back up on a pedestal a little bit and said, maybe it's not optimal. Maybe it's not, ideal to shave 30 million. But when you look at who we should be playing a third of the season against in this side, inside this AL Central division, that was kind of always like the but part of that conversation. And obviously that didn't kind of play out like a lot of people thought as well. So can't forget about that as well. When you think about the last 5-6 weeks, just the way, this last month and a half has played out, is there any part of you that wishes they would have just paid the premium and coughed up one of those top prospects at the deadline for some real pitching help? Not just like a, average guy just to get a warm body in here, but a real stud. I mean, for some of those top prospects, and maybe not a Walker Jenkins, of course, but one of those top prospects, maybe a couple, you should have been probably able to get what you pay for, go get a real stud back there, I would think. Or were you always glad that they didn't mortgage any of the future, both for the short term this year and the long term, obviously, for 2025 and beyond?
Well, yeah, and that's the balance, is knowing that especially this team doesn't look like it's going to add payroll anytime soon, probably the other direction. So like, that makes the prospects even more valuable for the fact of that is what they have to supplement the roster. And I think at the deadline, even we looked and there was no big showstopper. I mean, Flaherty was on the market and there was a couple arms, but I think
it was a weird seller's market this year, was it not?
Yeah. There's no like Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander out there for you to grab. So I think I'm okay with the Twins not getting that huge guy that's going to cost you. Yeah. And obviously not a Walker Jenkins, Emmanuel Rodriguez, but somebody like a Luke Keyshaw or something like that.
Sure.
I think that's fine because Luke Keyshaw can help this team next year and maybe help them get a player in the offseason. And with how hard this team crashed, and I know, again, the pitching has been a big part of the problem. The lineup over the last month especially has cratered in. And I think even with a little bit better pitching, I don't know. Now, I think it would have saved them. I think all they needed is like 1 or 2 extra wins throughout that stretch. And I think they get that with a like decent pitcher. So it's hard to tell because sharing a chance to get into the playoffs, if you make a playoff run, it doesn't matter, what you gave up. But overall, I think in general, I'm fine with the Twins not mortgaging the future for a guy because I think one player probably isn't saving what happened in the last 5 weeks.
Nope, I agree. Well said. Nerdy stat of the daytime. You got some sort of crazy stat or fun analytic, Twins related? What do you got tonight?
Yeah, so I was getting ready to write an article for Zone Coverage, and I was working on it last night, and I kind of stumbled upon this stat while I was doing it. And obviously today they scored some runs, and they hit a home run today, and they're going to make this look a little foolish, but I still think this is important to point out. Since August 18th, and this is coming into today, the Minnesota Twins.
Is the start, by the way, of the epic collapse. That's the start of it. A lot of people, that's the game everybody circles. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's like the beginning of the end. That's where everything kind of bottomed out for this team. Since that point, the Twins offense has hit 26 home runs coming into today's game with a .355 team slugging percentage. That's not good. Woof. And the only team that's worse, is the Chicago White Sox, who are, and this isn't hyperbole, the worst team in the history of baseball.
Literally. Sometimes we throw that word out way too loosely. Literally the worst team in baseball history.
They had no power. And Buxton gave them a home run, much needed. But they're a team that relies on hitting home runs, and they have not hit home runs in that stretch.
That is too good, man. Absolutely fantastic. All right, don't go anywhere. Got to keep talking about this playoff picture. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members to date. And for me and my money, it's just by far the easiest. It's the most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and you watch your favorite players. So simple. All you got to do, you pick more or less on 2 or more players' stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. 4 games left of this baseball season. So whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, home runs, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less. Add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly with any $5 wager. All right, like I said, 4 games left. Season ends for everybody on Sunday. What's been your favorite storyline across the entire MLB this year? When you think back someday down the road, 2024 MLB season, first thing you think of is what?
Shohei Ohtani gets put on a real baseball team. And that guy is doing everything you expect Shohei Ohtani to do. So that guy's awesome. It's again, we throw around hyperbole with the greatest player of all time and stuff like that. And Mike Trout, I think, was very deserving of getting called that. And again, this is not hyperbole. We're watching modern day Babe Ruth, except we get to see it and it's not a myth. Yeah. Everything that Shohei Ohtani is doing is being recorded, all of his numbers, everything. We are seeing Babe Ruth play in front of our eyes, and it's just awesome. And it's awesome that we're going to see him get to play in October.
Yeah, I grew up in the Juice era. I watched Sammy Sosa hit 2 out in Wrigley. My family and I did a lot of like baseball road trips. I watched Mark McGwire, that whole 98 home run fest season. That was absolutely unbelievable. And don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of great fun baseball from then to now. But this Shohei Ohtani, this whole 50-50 club, everything about it just reminds me of that magical time of being a kid and just watching a true superstar, a blue chip, like one of one superstar in this league do things that we've never seen done before. And it's just so magical, man. No matter your age, if you're a fan of the sport, it's just been so magical watching this guy go to work. Absolutely incredible. Let's end with some sort of, positive note here, glass half full. Playoffs or not for this Twins team, what is one reason you are still very optimistic about this team in 2025?
Well, the reason I'm optimistic is Carlos Correa is still going to be here. Byron Buxton, I know, had some injuries, but overall put together a nice season. Pablo Lopez was weird, but again, is under contract. I think you have 3 veterans that can lead your team. And that really is the biggest thing. I know it's an off-season talking point, but I'll be high on Royce Lewis still going into next season, even though he had the slump. They have Emmanuel Rodriguez, who's going to be in the major leagues at some point next season. Walker Jenkins is going to probably not make the major league roster at any point next year, but he's going to be knocking on the door. There's some things to get hopeful for, but I think the biggest thing is going to be, look, out of everything that went bad, Carlos Correa, you can't get plantar fasciitis like he already had both of his legs get that. You're hoping that he doesn't get it another year. He put together an all-star first half. Yeah. Byron Buxton put together a nice season. Pablo Lopez, shaky, but still Pablo Lopez when things mattered. And I think that that's going to give me hope. Now, with payroll discussions, I don't know what's going to happen in the offseason, but I'm guessing all those guys are going to stay put, especially because Buxton and Correa have no trade clauses. So that's going to give me hope for next year is you do have the star power to be able to compete again, and you have some prospects that can come up and play.
And so much of what put a wrench into this year's season for the Twins was obviously the injuries, but outside of that, so much of what put just like a sour note in everybody's mouth was like, wait a minute, this division's not the worst division in baseball as well. Do you, when you look at the Tigers, the Royals, Cleveland obviously as well in the mix, do you see sustainability in 2025 and beyond as well for those 3 teams that definitely overachieved, at least compared to a lot of people's preseason expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I see, this is going to sound bad because I feel like I've been a Royals hater, but the Royals have a bad farm system. So it's not like they have Bobby Witt Jr. and that can make up for a little bit, but they're bottom of the league in that. So it's not like they have help on the way. They've already spent a bunch of money. So it feels like that team has a little bit of a ceiling, and even they're starting to fade here. And they had a lot of guys have career years. So I could see them regressing. The Tigers, on the other hand, are a team that's young. They have top prospects coming. They have a good farm system, and Cleveland always develops pitching. So I think when you look at those factors, I think Detroit's not going anywhere. Cleveland, as we found out, they just haven't gone anywhere for like a decade now. So they've always just been in the mix and been relevant. So when you look at it, do I think that they're going to be having 3 teams make the postseason and the fourth one being on the outside looking in? Probably not. But at the same time, I think this division I think they're going to avoid the rap that they've gotten the last few years, deservedly so, of worst division in baseball. I think there's going to be a little more respect put on the AL Central's name throughout the winter and into next season.
Yeah, and just to echo those thoughts as well, according to ESPN's latest power rankings of the MLB farm systems, Twins, Cleveland, Detroit, all like top 5, if not top 10 farm systems. Kansas City's, you were right, way down there in the 20s somewhere. White Sox, kind of early teens. I want to say they were 12th in the mix. So you're totally right on that. Well said. Twins snapped the losing streak tonight. They beat Miami 8-3. 4 games left. Game 3 tomorrow. Festa on the mound. First pitch. It's another 6:40 p.m. start time. Hey, huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. Go check out all of CJ's work on Twitter. Give him a follow at BombCJ30. Plus, all the work he's always ripping up over at ZoneCoverageMN.com as well. Go like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.